Jamaican in the White House. Who would have
That
thought?
would be interesting. That would be interesting. We'll claim our any way you want to take it.
You know, of course.
It will be an interesting dynamic. I mean, there have been lots of discussion. I think where I would start with that is just happy that, first of all, even before the nationality and all of that, that the madness that has unfolded over
This
the last
4 years,
seems like 20 odd years. It is it's not that it will grind to a halt, because we have seen, even in terms of the outcome of the election, we saw where a lot of the states, I don't think it was beyond them to compute or project or complete the count or whatever. I think that they got even more rigorous out of the fear of declaring one way or the other.
Yeah, for
right?
sure. For sure.
And for me, that was a major note to make in terms of the usual narrative about the democracy of America. And I think, you know, I don't want to drum too deep in it, because I never know if you're going to start that point.
Yeah, I mean, it actually works out. I mean, to be honest, the only thing I was saying before is what we were saying in the commentary is, when you see diversity and persons getting voted in, you know, that you didn't normally see before, whether it be women, transgender, you know, Latino, black, whatever. To get to that point, you have to see it. And that's what I wanted to tie back to what you were saying, you know, as a teenager when you were reading these books. Exactly. And that is where it's important, where in the art or literature or whatever, there are things that positively, and just that word, positively, you know, reflect something that you can associate with. That the other side of that is when we constantly see movies or songs or whatever that constantly depicts us as criminals or so forth and so on. Life does imitate art. There's no two ways about that. You know, what you put out there, what you see is what you live. But that's just the only point I wanted to make. But
you'll hear the semantics, which is what I personally deem it. There's space for discourse. People will say that we watch movies or people live in other societies, and they, for example, will say, you can be in Norway and you watch a show where 20 people get murdered or whatever, but people not going to do it or whatever. But I would say that, you know, first of all, I don't argue without context. So I'm not just going to jump into another space and say whatever. Our context is one of untreated trauma. A lot of people don't really like to have the discussions about how the fact that slavery wasn't just a little blip and then we just end up here. It was a major, and we had a history before that, but certainly for our region and for places like the US, people don't realize how recent this is, and the fact that it continues today, because there's a law in, I would say, I don't remember the exact date now, but in the 1600s, where in the US, and at that time that wouldn't have been out of the norm in other places too, from way back then, to say, look, if you kill somebody who is black, it's like killing an animal.
Yeah, there's no value to the life.
There's no value. So we're not really count that where the law is concerned. That's neither here nor there. And then you move to the current context, where you see, outside of even the tagline about Black Lives Matter, you see actual disproportionate levels of violence and cruelty being met out to one particular segment of the population. I mean, these things don't happen by chance, right? So what we have to, going back to the argument you're raising about art imitating life, I think for me, what my argument would be is that if we know this is not now we're going to do research into, we know it's an established thing that we're coming out of a period of major trauma, and it's not resolved. We're not. Would you then seek to deepen that wound, or to create an environment that promotes even more violence and harm, as opposed to healing? So I believe that art, my personal belief is that art should heal. It don't have to be that for everybody, but I think for us as Black people, we have to create more spaces and more things that promote healing, whether it's music, whether it's visual arts, whether it's performing. Don't mean that it not going to tackle harsh subjects, which is why, I don't know if you watch this series, Lovecraft Country.
No.
It's pretty new. It's based on a book, and they touched on, which, I mean, for me, sometimes social media is an unreal space, because I try to check myself and be like, not everybody know everything. I know that generally, but the level of ignorance on some major things in our history, it shows me that, it tells me, and I don't claim to know everything, but I mean things that I consider groundbreaking, like Tulsa, or what is called Greenwood. The amount of people who were living in the US and never, it was this show in 2020 that made them know about this major thing in their history, right? And I say, you know, it was painful to watch because they didn't pretty it up. That's another thing, right? Sometimes I think that what prevents us, what keeps us in denial, and it's like somebody who gets addicted to drugs and they're going towards recovery. There are gonna be parts of it that are ugly. Like, you know, I watched a series recently where they're documenting that process for somebody who was a drug addict, and there are parts of it that I could not watch because it was so devastating to look at somebody moving from a quote unquote normal person, a professional, like me or you, going about their business, and then they just become addicted to a substance, and it changes not them whole life, just even how them look. It destroys them, but it doesn't mean that they're destroyed totally. And then the process of healing, it's not always pretty, but you know that the intention is to heal, not to further destroy, which is what I think some of the music. All right. We need to have that very honest discussion.
Yes.
If Jamaica has a murder rate of X, or we lead region in this part of the world, don't come and tell me that when somebody say full of boy with 20 shot, tear out him head, make him marrow drop on the ground, don't tell me that is divorced.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's a weird kind of space to be in, because if we're honest, sometimes you go in some spaces for entertainment and you might hear a beat and you hear a song and it might not be totally familiar to you, and it's when you really actually listen to what is being said, you're like, I can't consume this.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we have to, we do use art, and you should use art in whatever form to speak about issues, you know. I guess poets come to mind, you know. It's not so long ago, you know, as a poet, you'll probably be locked up or whatever, you know, for thinking about certain things in through art. So yeah, and you should
it's
reflect.
Happening today.
Yes. Exactly.
Still happening today. There's an author now from Zimbabwe, that won a major prize recently, and you know, basically the work of that person is seen as running contrary to the narrative that the government, or it's still happening. The freedom we have is that the freedom to publish, the freedom of expression is still being suppressed, especially at a time like now when people feel like they really need to talk out about certain things.
Right. So this election,
which one? Because we have so much happening.
the last one, and you're right. I mean, things are not going to change overnight, but I mean, there are some important lessons, I believe, and one of them is the importance of character, and character shouldn't be divorced from the economic benefit to an individual, because they shouldn't be that indifferent, you know, because a lot of people will say that, oh, they weren't aware that he would have done X or he would have done Y, which really and truly means that, you know, you just weren't paying attention to what happened, but you are sufficiently aligned with him where you may not believe everything that he does or everything that he said, you understand, but because you have some sort of financial benefit from it. Because I speak to persons who live in the States, right, and they did see an increase in their 401k or you know, their stocks and so forth. So therefore, so some persons associated with that, you know what? Okay, you have all these other character, you know, issues that's happening that you really don't approve of, but it's not, you know, I'm making extra money, so hey, everything is good. Yeah, and that's the truth. So where leadership is concerned is something that I'm very, very passionate about, actually. And that was the most disappointing thing. And I hope that a lot of persons realize, you know, that no matter what you may think to be beneficial in the short term, the character is absolutely interesting. And so, and very important. And you can see, if you have an influential leader, it is important that they have the right character, because with the drop of a hat, especially nowadays with social media, you can create a riot or you can cause peace, you know, just like that. Do I expect anything to change? Obviously. I mean, sorry, let me rephrase that. Do I expect anything to change overnight? You know, not because there's no change in government or anything like that, you know, but at least there should be, it's a big no, a vote no to this particular divisiveness, you know what I mean? So that was personally, I'm happy to see. And before we started to record, you know, we had a discussion about none of us are Americans, none of us, you know, vote or in the States or anything like that. But why is it that we are interested, you know, in what's happening there? And the reality is the world is small, so whether you live in the States or not, honestly, it's not important, because it's difficult to pick a country, you know, that does not will not be affected one way or the other by what's happening in the States. You know? And especially West Jamaica, you know, it's an hour and a half flight, you know, from Kingston to Miami, you know. So so we should be, and as we said before, it will be good, and we should, though, take the same energy, not just for what's happening in the States. Focus on as well as what's happening in other countries that are not necessarily as powerful or anything. Because the same injustice, you know, some is injustice anywhere and things like that. So that's what I think about it, though. You know, about this particular situation.
For me, I mean, first of all, let's start at the fact that the whole world almost is breathing a sigh of relief this morning. That, you know, finally, at least, even if it's tentative, I mean, we use the term president-elect, that a lot of things have happened with this morning coming about the Biden-Harris ticket. First of all, to be biased, Jamaica records a part of the history as usual. I mean, Kamala Harris is the first Black woman, first woman period, to be in the White House in this position. It's historic. That Jamaica figures in that, you know, so we're not gonna stop. We're not gonna stop with that.
I'm sure we are already looking forward to her visit.
Right? Not even the president.
Not even the president. They're looking forward to now. Send Kamala to Jamaica.
Right? there's that. I mean, it's not a perfect ticket. There are many issues that one can break down between both candidates to examine. But I think that in this moment, the most important thing, certainly for Americans, but also because of the same point you raised about us, when they say a global village, they meant it. I mean, it's literally, though the geographic distances and space might be far apart, the way, we have seen it with COVID, how literally one event can just trigger into a global crisis, right? That's the world we live in. So going back to the US, I would say that the most important thing about this declaration is that the US was literally, I don't know what was the next incredible, ridiculous, mind-blowing, all the adjectives that you can use, thing that could have happened as it relates to the personalization of foreign policy. You're vexed with somebody, or you don't like some, like, how do you govern one of the most supposedly powerful democracies in the world from such a standpoint? We had never seen anything like that before. Not that there weren't presidents before who had destructive policies towards other parts of the world. That's well documented, especially for areas like the Caribbean. But just in terms of what we were seeing unfolding, the basic lack of humanity in terms of the treatment of certain groups. We would have heard about the camps, the ICE camps, and children, and all of those issues. I think the world breathes a sigh of relief this morning. That at a minimum, Biden, can you imagine a US president at a minimum, all he has to do is not crash the economy, right? Be a decent person, not cuss off everybody, and believe that climate change is real.
You know, there's this expression, you take defeat out of the jaws of victory. And that's what happened, because really and truly, from January this year, there's no way Donald Trump was going to lose. No way. You understand?
Because look at it, Biden has gotten the most votes of any president in modern history. But the opposite is true in
exactly.
We all agree was getting totally insane. Getting so many, having it so close at one point.
Yeah, exactly. So you're right. And yeah, he really talked himself out of a second term, to be honest.
It will be interesting to see how the and in what period of time. A lot of people, I mean, I won't repeat the speculations I've heard, but people don't expect it to be the usual smooth presidential transition for obvious reasons. But let us see what plays out. Certainly, I'm hoping for the best. Jamaica is literally in the US's backyard.
Exactly.
We have to keep.
And these things are important
right?
to us.
Where remittances are concerned, where that is another practical point of connection. Right?
Western Union needs to reestablish that highway, you know.
Yeah.
Honestly, it is something that is very fascinating from so many points. And one of them I like to speak about is, you know, fighting for a constitution, and you should 100%. But it is really interesting how a particular group will pick apart that constitution. And the most intense I've felt about it, to be honest with you, is over the last 2 to 3 days, and I'll explain. Right, so the constitution is there. You need to do whatever to ensure that is respected. No issues are. Fast forward to now, and then on one hand, they are, you know, trying to stop a vote. The other one, you're trying to continue it for your own personal gain. Either which way, it is infringing on the most sacred act of any citizen of the world or any country. Before you can speak about anything else, you have to ensure that the right to vote and your right to be heard is sacred. So
Exactly.
what it is that really I'm truly infuriated me with it over the last 2 days is that on one hand you're saying, especially the Second Amendment, right, and First Amendment, where freedom of speech, of course,
Yeah.
your Second Amendment, your gun rights, yeah, of course, Fifth Amendment, do all of those. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, you are now actively trying to suppress a vote. How do you then cry out, being a patriot, saying you have to defend the Constitution, and then at the same time you're doing something else, which the most basic right, you're now trying to do away with that particular. That for me was
It's the same kind of cognitive dissonance that you would see them displayed during slavery,
mm,
right? Where on one hand, the participants, especially in our side of the world, would proudly declare that they're Christians or whatever. It's like they say, Columbus roll up with a Bible in one hand and a gun in the other,
mm,
right?
mm,
So the people rationalize
mm,
these behaviors
mm,
to say, yeah, there's the right to vote, but
mm,
not for everybody.
mm,
Or yeah, freedom to carry my weapon,
mm,
but not freedom of expression
mm,
or freedom to vote
mm,
or whatever.
mm,
It's I tell people, until we have an honest global discussion,
mm,
I don't imagine that it will unfold as everybody sitting down in a circle and singing Kumbaya or everybody stopping at one time.
mm,
But all our societies have to get to a place, because the future is collaboration. The future is societies, the societies that will thrive and will push through events like a COVID,
mm,
which I don't believe it's a one-off thing.
mm,
I believe that the future is going to be filled with disruptions as much as it will have opportunities.
mm,
And the societies that are going to thrive are the ones that have an emphasis on true democracy,
mm,
not just on paper or something that they recite, and in reality some people have rights and others don't.
mm,
Societies that look at things like equality,
mm,
real equality,
mm,
for people in every way, from equal pay for equal work where gender is concerned,
mm,
to just allowing people to exist and exist with basic rights,
mm,
right? These are the kind of spaces that it's not about who has the most money
mm,
in reserves or who have the most weapons or whatever.
mm,
That's my outlook.
mm.
And so that point that you have made is a very important one, and I feel like now is a real moment for societies like, or democracies
Mhm.
like America, to really do some serious introspection,
Yeah, you're so.
because if it does not happen,
Mhm.
and that's one of the reasons managed to separate from Black women literally driving out the votes, like a Stacey
Yes,
Abrams,
big up.
big up, right? No,
Listen,
literally saying, no, beyond me not winning a race. That's what I love about her story. Like, she said to herself that beyond me not winning, me not becoming whatever,
the governor, yeah.
about me, we in a crisis. So here what me I gonna do? Me
Mhm.
I gonna go out there and I'm going to solve the problem that I see. That's what she literally did.
Listen,
There's
there's
not no magic flip the state, it's work.
exactly,
And
exactly,
that's
exactly,
what we're gonna do.
exactly. If you follow global politics, and especially the U.S. in 2018 versus Kemp, who was then the Secretary of State and all of that. I mean, she
Yeah,
lost.
I'm plugging in my machine because it's going low. Continue.
Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, but she came close. 55,000 votes is not a lot. I mean, the country, I think they voted, what, 6 million people now? So that's really a thin margin. So when we see what's happening here in Georgia, I mean, you have to give her mad props. And what I'm looking forward to is what role she's gonna get, or is she gonna run again in
2024.
2022? If she's gonna run
Oh,
again
yeah.
of Georgia, so not sure, which one.
Boy, to be honest with you,
Mhm.
that's gonna be a tough decision for both her to make and for the Democrats if them have sense. A lot of people have been saying she would be an ideal leader in terms of the DNC. They see her there, but I don't know about that.
Yeah.
In terms of balancing out, I think she would be best served by I think she would make an excellent governor. And it would also give her that balance in terms of the state level politics as well as playing a role nationally. And she pointed out something that's very important and something that we need to look at here too, which is in terms of youth engagement in politics. Because the truth is, politics is a term that we tend to use loosely, not understanding that life is political.
Yeah.
You can't avoid politics because politics shape your society.
Listen, I'm so glad you brought up that. It was, I think, 2 days ago, or probably yesterday. I was having a discussion with someone and talking about they're in the States, and I asked, so of course talking about election and stuff. And I said, well, I voted, but I'm not into politics. I said, what? I said, listen, I'm paraphrasing what I said. I said, listen, we have come to demonize the word politics. We have come to associate it with
and there are real reasons for that. Yeah.
Exactly. You keep people disengaged. Is that way you can continue to do what you're doing? That's the aim of it, right? Right. So I said to her that forget about the word politics for a second. Think about it as getting involved in civil activities, because that is what it is. So when you say, we talk what issues, so she's in New York. So I said, okay, you have a car, where can you park? What will be the fee? You're on the metro, how will that affect you? You have kids in school, what's the board? All of that is civil matters. All of that is politics. You understand? Yep. So I felt the same way when I was younger, like, oh, not into politics, not into politics. It's only since I've gotten older and started to take an interest in what's happening, globally, and understanding that these meetings and these, persons who are in power, they see us affect your life. What will be your property tax? What are they going to do with your school? Teacher salary, nurse, hospital, these things. So really and truly, no, I'd encourage every young person not shy away from the word or what the culture we have now going to accept. Oh, that's just politics. That's just politics. No, it is not boring stuff. It affects you, because whether you like it or not, whether you like politics or not, politics likes you. You are. That's what I told her. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. You have to get involved.
Yeah, man. That's in CARICOM, and even if you're to pull Jamaica out by itself, we have CARICOM, I believe, has more than half its total population falling into the category of youth at this juncture. And that's in terms of the history. It is a unique time. Jamaica has a very young population as well. And so the fact of the matter is, though, I'll be honest, personally, I would say on politics that I'm somebody who is not shy of public service, but the state of our political parties and whatever is not one that people would willingly want to jump into certain atmosphere, because honestly, I see a lot of time being wasted with partisan politics and all the nastiness that comes with that, as opposed to actually identifying talent among young people or not so young people, and also deliberately creating that environment of mentorship between older or more experienced politicians, legislators, etc., to actually nurture a new crop. Is almost like people go into office, they go into it with their own perspective in terms of what they will achieve in their role, in terms of the literal gains. And that is the almost tunnel vision, not realizing that if you're really concerned about the state of affairs of the country or the region, you would have to be deliberate about things like mentorship, right? Because who will replace you? Who will understand? We need more people who, for example, now, I think I pointed out to you that there's an ongoing issue as it relates to the environment. Many of us, right, we take it as a joke. And sometimes the stories are funny. So like nowadays, we'll say that you don't really have potholes anymore. You have portals. Because when you drop, it's like interdimensional travel.